Now, one of the ways that you can get in touch with this whole notion of different ways of learning is to take a look at yourself. So our next poll question, we're going to be asking you about the way that you like to learn. Some of us are readers, others are talkers, others like to draw, etc., etc. I think if we can take a look at our own approaches to learning, we can then apply it to those that we're teaching. So Nick, show us our options for this poll question.
All right, Joe. Our question again is, what's your preferred approach to learning? This is your approach, not your students. Option A is listening to a lecture. B, if you enjoy reading to learn. C is by writing. D, discussing. Option E is for those of you who are interested in creative expression, art, music, things in a similar vein. F is for group activities, role play, games, anything where you have more than 2 or 3 people involved. And finally, G is other, if you have something else that we just haven't hit on in our other options. So please go ahead, take the time now, and go ahead and answer the question for us.
Okay, thank you, Nick. And if you're someone who does not like listening to someone talk a lot, you're probably struggling to get through the webinar because there's a lot of talking. But, you know, we don't have that opportunity to do a lot of different things like having you draw a picture. I suppose you could. You can hold it up, but I don't think I'll see it. But anyway, let's, while we're waiting for those poll results to come up, let's start taking a look at some of the different activities available to us. First one I want to talk about is what some people might consider an old-fashioned one, memorization. You know, Jesus taught us that we need to love the Lord our God with our whole heart, mind, soul, and strength. You notice that he included the word mind in there. Faith is something that involves both our hearts and our brains. And too often, we sometimes will drop this notion of having people memorize some of the formulas of our faith, thinking that that's old-fashioned. Well, I kind of grew up during the 60s when that was tossed out the window, and as a result, I didn't memorize anything about my faith, and I'm still paying the price for it. And so it's important for us to help our young people to memorize things like the mysteries of the Rosary or the 7 Sacraments or the 10 Commandments, depending on their age group. All right, that's the first option we're going to toss out there, but let's get the results of our poll now and see what the people enjoy here. Nick?
All right, Joe. It looks like we have a pretty clear winner here. Discussing is a favorite among our attendees tonight. After that, we have group activities and reading, followed closely by listening to a lecture, then creative expression, writing, and other, each garnered 3% of the vote tonight, Joe.
Okay, I'm not surprised that discussing is strong. Catechists love to talk to one another. And you're going to love visiting my blog then, because tonight we can only have so much discussion going back and forth. But when we're done here, we're going to continue the discussion on my blog over the next several days. Well, let's take a look at some more of the options available to us. The next one, speaking and singing, obviously discussion is a part of that. And if we ourselves as catechists enjoy having discussions, then it's good for us to turn around and invite those we teach to engage in discussions as well. But I'd also like to put in a vote for music and singing. I think that's an important part of our Catholic faith. I think that young people and adults enjoy singing. There's a middle group there. The junior high that I teach are not much into singing songs, but I always bring music in, especially contemporary music, to engage them. So don't underestimate speaking and singing, and especially bringing in music to reinforce what we're teaching. Writing is another important learning activity. Some people prefer to write than to speak out loud. I'm one of them. I love to write. You could put me in a room with a laptop all day long, I would be like a pig in mud. It's just wonderful. And ask me to speak in front of people, and I can do it, but I'm more nervous. And so some of our young people are like that too. They would prefer to write something. Well, let's give them that opportunity. Not all of them are comfortable speaking in front of a class, but boy, they could write up something and impress you with what they have to say. Another thing we should keep in mind, role-playing and dramatization. We have some budding young actors and actresses in front of us when we're teaching. Get them involved in role-playing scripture stories, reenacting scripture stories. role-playing moral dilemmas, especially if you're teaching about the Ten Commandments. You yourself as a catechist may consider dressing up and dramatizing a biblical character. I know catechists who have come into their classrooms dressed as St. Paul or as Moses or Elijah or Ruth or Mary. There's so many wonderful ways that we can do that and bring drama into our sessions. Catechists really enjoy bringing games into their sessions. I'd like to offer one little caveat about that, though. The reason we bring in games is not just to have fun. It's to teach and to help people learn. So if you're bringing in games, make sure that it's something that's reinforcing your lesson. A lot of catechists play games that are variations of Jeopardy or Hangman, The Price is Right, Let's Make a Deal, or even Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And you can use games like this to engage people, especially in reviewing some of the important concepts that have been taught. Drawing and art is another powerful activity. I mentioned that some people don't like to speak out loud. Well, some don't like to speak out loud or write. But give them a canvas, and they could probably draw a beautiful portrait of heaven and express themselves through their art. So give people opportunities to express themselves creatively by drawing pictures or creating a little sculpture out of some molding clay, modeling clay. So I think these are important ways that we can help people to learn by expressing themselves in drawing and art. And then finally, let's not forget the power of audiovisual. We need to remember that our young people are bombarded by audiovisual stimuli. They're watching TV, DVDs, videos, they're listening to iPods, they're on the computer, they're surfing the internet, and then they come to religion class, and if all we can offer them is reading from a book, they're going to be a bit mystified by that. And so make sure that you do what you can from time to time to bring in different audio visuals. I know in my lessons over the years I've used PowerPoint presentations, I've used iPods, CDs, DVDs. This year I'm hoping for the first time to use internet access in my classroom. Not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I'm working on it. Now, one last thing about this before we move on. Don't feel that you have to do all of these, especially if you're a new catechist. You may be thinking, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to incorporate all these different things that Joe's talking about? We just want to get you to know about these, expose you to them, and be aware that all of these options are available to us. Now, in just a few moments, we're going to be taking some more questions. So start sending in your questions about anything we've talked about tonight, but let me offer one more piece of advice while we're waiting for you to get some of your questions in. You know, when kids watch TV, which they do, I think statistics show about 5 hours a day or so, they are used to seeing commercials pop up every 10 minutes. Well, in some ways, we can use that thinking in our lessons. I encourage you to think of your lesson in 10-minute segments. Do something for 10 minutes and then bring in some variety. If you choose one activity and stick with it for a half hour, there's a good chance that by 20 minutes into it, it's going to start losing some steam. And so if you think in terms of, you know, a 10-minute introductory activity, then maybe 10 minutes of reading from the book, 10 minutes of an activity that gets us off the page, 10 minutes back to the book, use that as a thumbnail. It's not meant to be a rigid rule to follow, but just something that I recommend. Keep it fresh is basically what I'm encouraging you to do. Well, if we can do that, if we can vary the activities in our lessons, hopefully our kids especially won't be offering this prayer when they go to bed at night. You see this little girl praying, and is there anything you could do to punch up religion class? Well, I think we can do lots to punch up religion class by bringing in the variety that we've been speaking about so far.